We begin with the unrest in Thailand, where thousands of anti-government protesters have been cleared from outside the Prime Minister's office in the capital. Riot police marched onto the streets after the government declared an emergency early this morning, banning group gatherings. Tensions flared as demonstrators rallied around the Democracy Monument in the heart of Bangkok on Wednesday. Rights groups say at least 3 protest leaders and dozens of others have been arrested. Scott Heidler joins us live from outside the government house in Bangkok, a hub for those protests. So, Scott, bring us up to date. What is the latest?
As you can see behind me, this is the area where those protesters were overnight. It has been cleared and it has been cleaned. Now, what had happened kind of as we got to the situation overnight where this was cleared and cleaned, that started at Democracy Monument. Thousands of anti-government protesters gathered there kind of throughout the day. They even brought the time for gathering up because they're worried about it being able to stage around the Democracy Monument. That's about a kilometer and a half from where I stand right now. They staged there for several hours, kind of late afternoon. They started to march here to Government House, where the Prime Minister's office is. This is something they had been promising time and time again, and they actually went through with it. What was very interesting about that, as they made their way here, there are police barricades, multiple police barricades along the road to here, Government House, but they broke through those. Either they negotiated their way through at some of them or broke through them, physically broke through them to make their way here to Government House. And even just in the neighborhood next to Government House, they lined this large avenue, thousands of them, late in the afternoon through the early evening. They even pushed buses aside to make their way into this area. Then they staged a sit-in, if you will, for several hours. And then when it became very late at night, kind of several hundred hardcore protesters stayed here overnight. Then at 4 a.m., that's when the government issued an emergency decree saying that any group over 5 was illegal. And that's when we saw that clearing out process that led to this empty street behind me. Now, what's interesting about that is that the protest leaders were on makeshift stages throughout this avenue here, and they told the protesters to leave, to be peaceful and follow the orders of the police. So that was very interesting, and it happened without much violence at all. They even had a water cannon truck here that was never used. Tear gas was never used. So where we are now, we know now that I can update that number. 6 protest leaders have now been arrested. So as we move forward, it'll be interesting to see how they view today, actually Wednesday through today, Thursday, how the protest leaders view this success or a setback, and then also what are they going to do next. But obviously right now, regrouping, and again, at least 6 protest leaders have been arrested, and we know that dozens of protesters have also been arrested and are currently being held.
Many thanks for that. Scott Heidler there for us in Bangkok. Well, what is the background to all this? For the last 3 months, demonstrators have been